The second half couldn't have went much worse for West Virginia. Could not throw the ball in the ocean tonight or today in this game as they fall to Texas Tech 73-51 in Big 12 hoops action. This was a game that the Mountaineers really, I'm not going to say they needed to win, but they needed to keep it close and be competitive at least, because of perception, if anything. I mean, Joe Lenardi said that if West Virginia got blown out in this game, it would probably knock them off the first 4 byes and put them into the, I think, last 4 in, maybe, something like that. So they are literally hanging on by a thread in the bubble or on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. And they needed to be competitive in this game, and they just weren't. They were for the first few minutes, for really the whole first half. And in the second half, it was just like a totally different basketball team as they just could not make open shots. Now, my take on that is if you're not making three-pointers, if your shots aren't falling, then you need to do something different. Draw up something else. Get to the rim. Try to get to the rim. Try to score at the rim. And they did not do that enough, in my opinion, in the second half. You had guys like Toby O'Connie, Sincere Harris, KJ Tinner shooting three-pointers. And those guys, yes, they can make them, but not on a consistent basis. Now, I do have to give credit to Texas Tech. They took Javon Small almost completely out of the game. Really made it a struggle for him. And I think maybe Javon is still bothered by that ankle that he was dealing with that was injured a few games ago. But nonetheless, they basically took Javon out of the game and made it really, really difficult for him. And his teammates just weren't able to step up and make shots. And they weren't, they didn't do a good enough job, in my opinion, of trying to get to the rim. Now, maybe that was the Texas Tech defense preventing them from that, because Texas Tech, after all, Texas Tech improves to 21-6 overall and 12-4 in Big 12 play. I mean, they're number 9 in the country for a reason. So they are a really good basketball team, and their defense stepped up and played really well in the second half to stop this West Virginia team from scoring the basketball. But again, I saw too many guys on the West Virginia team standing around not moving without the ball. Don't know what the reasons were. I guess they just got in, sometimes when you're not making shots, you kind of get in your own head and things become a struggle for you. And that's what happened in this game, in my opinion. And they took Javon out and his teammates outside of Amani Hansberry, who had himself a good night or a good day. They just weren't able to make shots. So that's my thoughts on it. Just, it was an offensive struggle all game long. Even in the first half, when West Virginia was winning the game and ahead for most of the half, they still weren't playing that great offensively, but they played at least somewhat better than they did in the second half. They at least made a few shots from downtown, but they were winning with their defense. And then in the second half, as they struggled to shoot the ball, you saw their defense kind of, let up a little bit, for lack of a better term, and allowed Texas Tech basically to do whatever it was they wanted to do in the second half. And Texas Tech started to make shots in the second half. They started to get to the rim more in the second half. Again, there was a free throw discrepancy in this game, but again, you can't blame it on that, because West Virginia when it's a 22-point gap, you can't blame it on free throws, a free throw disparity. They just weren't good. Bottom line, we're not good offensively in the game, and that cost them. Not a lot else to say. So let's go ahead and pull up the stats here, and we'll look at team and individual stats like we always do in these live shows. Thank you for joining. By the way, if you're joining over from X, I appreciate you joining the show. I ask that you please come over to the YouTube channel, Hoops from the Hills, once the show's over. This is not on the Couz's Corner YouTube channel. It's actually on the Hoops from the Hills channel. So please come over and subscribe. This is a channel where I cover West Virginia Mountaineer basketball every single week, or every all season long. But as we look at the stats, keep in mind the Texas Tech stats are on the right, West Virginia on the left. Field goals, West Virginia was 19 of 58, 32.8%. That's not going to get it done in the Big 12. Texas Tech, on the other hand, 46.4% on 26 of 56 shooting. You look at three-point baskets, West Virginia 6 of 27, 22%, not going to get it done. Texas Tech, on the other hand, 9 of 22, 40.9%, slightly ahead of their season average. In my preview show with R.C. Maxfield from the Back to 12 podcast, he talked about how we talked about Texas Tech shooting 38% from three on the season. They're averaging about 10 made threes a game. They made 9, but were slightly ahead of their season average as far as percentage. And West Virginia, on the other hand, I said they need to make at least 9 threes. They made 6. Now, 3 more threes wouldn't have been enough in this game, but it might have changed momentum. If you could have made a couple shots in the second half, get your confidence up. You see the ball go through the net. It's easier to make that second one once you make that first one, right? Because you get your confidence up, and that's what this team wasn't able to do. Free throws, 7 for 11 for West Virginia, 12 for 15 for Texas Tech. So that disparity actually wasn't as big as I thought. But West Virginia only shot 63.6% from the free throw stripe. Not good enough. Again, this is big boy basketball. This is the Big 12. 63.5% is not going to win you many games. That needed to be at least 9 or 10 of 11 right there. And then on the other hand, Texas Tech shot 12 of 15, 80%. Rebounds, Texas Tech out-rebounded the Mountaineers 41-31, so that was another area they struggled in. And it was mainly on the defensive glass. West Virginia gave up 32 defensive rebounds to Texas Tech on the night. Not good. Now, a lot of that was because of West Virginia's missed shots. When you miss as many shots as West Virginia did, that obviously is going to lead to more defensive rebounds, so maybe that number is a little bit skewed. Assists, Texas Tech wins that 12-9. They win the steals 5-4. West Virginia has one more block shot, 4-3. Total turnovers, 9 apiece. So turnovers was not an issue in this game, in my opinion. Points off turnovers, though, were an issue. 11 points off turnovers for Texas Tech, only 5 for the Mountaineers. They weren't able to capitalize. Fast break points, Texas Tech with 8 of those, West Virginia only 2. Again, when you miss a lot of threes, it leads to fast break points, and that's what happened in this game. It leads to long rebounds, which lead to fast break points, transition points. 16 fouls for West Virginia, only 9 committed by Texas Tech. And then largest lead, 24 for the Red Raiders. West Virginia led by as many as 9 in the first half. So there are your team stats. So West Virginia statistically lost this game in almost every single category. But primarily right here, what's the biggest factor? Shooting. 32% from the floor and 22% from 3. That's the difference right there. And rebounding. 32 to 20 or 41-31. Those are 2 areas West Virginia has got to improve. And at this point in the season, will they? I don't know. West Virginia just struggles to shoot the basketball as of late, it seems like. Outside of a handful of guys, teams have figured out how to take Javon Small out of the game. Obviously, I'm not sure where his ankle played a role in it. May have played a huge role. We don't know. I have not heard the post-game pressers yet to be able to talk about that, with a lot of knowledge, but I do know he was banged up in the last game against Cincinnati. He mentioned it after the game that it was hurting him. I have a feeling he didn't have time to recover between Wednesday and Saturday. So more than likely that's going to be an issue for the rest of the season unless he's able to somehow get healed up. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the box score here, the individual stats. Can you guys see my screen? I'm doing a screen share here. I don't know why it's not showing up. It's odd. Let me try this again. Maybe I need to do this. I don't know why the screen share is not showing up, guys. I'll apologize for that. Yep, I have no idea what's going on. It's showing on my end that it's sharing, but yet it's not showing on your end. But anyway, we can read it. You've got, let me see. You had Amani Hansberry with 14 points to lead the Mountaineers to go along with 11 rebounds. So he had another double-double. That's 2 straight for him. Javon Small, despite his struggles, did end up in double figures in scoring with 10 points to go along with 2 rebounds and a steal and 5 assists. No other player in double figures. Just scoring was a struggle for almost everybody on this team tonight. Jonathan Powell was not hitting his shots. He was 1 of 3 from 3, 2 of 5 from the floor, 5 points total. You had Toby Oconee, only 2 points. Sincere Harris, only 4 points. I mentioned Jonathan Powell, Off the bench, you had Eduardo Andre with 6 and only 1 rebound for him. KJ Tenner with 2, Joseph Yesufu with 5. He continues to struggle shooting the ball. He was only 1 for 5 from the floor, 0 of 3 from 3. You had Toby Okani 0 for 4 from 3. They just, even Javon wasn't making his 3-pointers. He was 1 of 6 tonight or today. Amani Hansberry was 2 of 5. He was the best as far as shooting the 3-ball. Rebounding, you had Amani with 11, and next closest was Sincere Harris with 5. Assists, Javon had 5. Just blocks, you had 1 from Javon, 1 from Toby, and 2 from Eduardo Andre. Now, for Texas Tech, they had several guys in double figures. They had J.T. Toppin into the game with 22 points. They held him in check for the most part in the first half, but in the second half, not so much. He went on a tear in the second half and ended up with 22. Christian Anderson ended up with 21 points in this game on 7 of 13 shooting, 5 of 8 from three-point range, so they were not able to stop him from behind the arc. Elijah Hawkins had 10 points to go along with 5 assists. And by the way, J.T. Toppin also had 8 rebounds, so he was 2 rebounds away from a double-double. Federico with 2 points to go along with 6 rebounds and a block. And then Kevin Overton had a good day off the bench with 10 points and 6 rebounds. Texas Tech only played 7 guys in this game. So you can't blame this one on a short rotation and a short bench because they played more guys or less guys than West Virginia did. But they made their shots and West Virginia didn't. That was really the difference. Let's go ahead and get to some of your comments here. Luke Armacost in the house says, I think it was less about us being a different team in the second half and more about Tech being a different team. And that's very fair, Luke. Tech did step their game up in the second half. They're a good basketball team, no doubt about it. And West Virginia right now is playing like an average team. I think, early in the season they were playing much better. Teams have figured out how to take Javon Small out. And when West Virginia has that second guy or third guy, actually, they need 2 guys. When they have that third guy who can step up and score, they can win games. But this is a team who just lives and dies by the 3-point shot. And when their threes aren't falling, they struggle. It's that simple. And the threes were not falling tonight. Raven Grady says, probably the worst game we've played all year, unfortunately. Raven, I have to agree, especially the second half. First half, the defense kept them in it. Second half, not so much. Luke again says Pitt was worse. Arizona State was worse. Mark Painter says, man, this is what it looks like when Javon loses trust in his fellow shooters. I don't know why KJ can't make a shot now. JP got lost again. No one had a real rhythm the whole game. Yeah, I just, again, I'll harken back to what I said earlier. There was no movement without the ball, or at least there was very little movement without the ball. Guys weren't trying to drive it to the rim. They weren't trying to cut to the rim. I don't know, man. It just they got stagnant. It's like their feet were in cement a little bit there, or in concrete, I should say, in the second half. They just couldn't, I don't know. They got stagnant. And when they're not making shots, it affects the defensive end of the floor. And teams have got, you can't do that. You have got to keep your defensive intensity up regardless of how you're shooting the ball. And West Virginia, to me, just wasn't able to do that in the second half. Now, do have to give some credit, again, to Texas Tech for that, because they played with a much higher level of intensity in the second half, and West Virginia wasn't able to match it. And then, again, Texas Tech made shots in the second half as well, which played a huge role in it. Luke says it doesn't help that when we were driving, we were getting creamed, but refs swallowed their whistle. Yeah, there was a little bit of that. Luke. I do agree, but it wasn't to the extent that we've seen, in my opinion, in other games. We saw the foul discrepancy was not near what it has been, but at the end of the day, you got to make shots. When you get to the free throw line, when you do get to the line, you got to make them. You can't shoot 65%, and you can't shoot 20% from 3 when half of your shots come from 3. Yes, Kevin, they quit rebounding in the second half. Again, I think it comes down to effort. I thought Texas Tech, let's be honest, Texas Tech put forth much more effort in the second half than West Virginia did. And I thought that's really what it came down to. Outside of shooting the ball poorly, was effort. Texas Tech gave more effort in the second half. Daniel Gigak says, I was hoping it would look decent. It did not. And I think that's why, even though their NCAA tournament hopes are not dead, I mean, they still have more games to play. They have a couple more games at home with TCU and UCF coming to town. If they can win those 2 games and maybe steal one on the road in Utah against either Utah or BYU, if you can steal one of those wins, hold serve at home, I think you get in. But man, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty here, and you have you really have no room for error anymore. I would say that you have little room for error. I don't think they have any room for error at this point. They have got to win these games. Yeah, Daniel, it did. The first 15 minutes looked really good. I agree. Kevin Backus says, I think sometime in the last 5 minutes, WVU was shooting 16% second half, and Texas Tech was shooting 63%. Yep. That'll lose you games. Luke Armacost got to knock down shots. Coach drew up nice plays. Be nice if we can knock those down. And it's not like they weren't open. I mean, they were wide open looks, but the problem is in a lot of the cases, you had the wrong guy shooting it. Like Toby O'Connie, who's not been hitting his outside shots lately. Like KJ Tenner, who's not hit his outside shots consistently all season. Joe Yesufu was not hitting his shots today. Now, normally he does, but today he was not. Sincere Harris threw up a couple. He did make one in his defense, but he missed 5. You need Javon, you need Jonathan Powell, and you need Amani Hansberry to be your shooters. That's what you need. But in Texas Tech's defense, I think they did a really good job of keeping those guys off the line, running them off the line. I think that had a lot to do with it. Again, some of this, you got to give some credit to the opponent here. Texas Tech had a really good game plan in the second half, and they executed it. Mark Painter, thank you for the super chat, my man. He says, always going to support. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. It means a lot. And Luke Armacost, thank you as well for the super chat. He says, Couz, I had to quit being a channel member for a while, but trying to support the way I can. Love the content. I still love this team. Well, Luke, man, I really appreciate the support here. I assume you're talking about channel membership over at Couz's Corner. I don't even have a channel membership set up on this channel yet. I haven't taken the time to do it, but I do appreciate the support, man. However you're able to support, I really do appreciate that. It means a lot. And by the way, for those of you who aren't able to support with super chats or memberships or whatever, you can do it for free by just liking it. If you like this live show, or if you're watching the replay, if you like the replay, it really helps. Hit that thumbs up button. It really helps the channel, really helps drive my content out to more people. Back to 12 podcast. Thank you for joining the show, brother. He says, heck of a start for WVU, but Tech surprisingly played real good physical defense. Good luck to y'all moving forward. Y'all should be a tournament team. Thank you, man. Thank you, my man. That's RC Maxwell from over at the Back to 12 podcast, who came on the show earlier in the week to preview the game. Shout out to him. Go check his channel out. Does a really great job covering Texas Tech over there. But the physicality is something I'm glad you brought up, because it's something I wanted to touch on. There was one specific play that comes to mind. It's just one example of, you had Texas Tech player. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Toppin, maybe. Anyway, he was driving to the rim, and you had Eduardo Andre standing there to try to stop him, to stop ball. Like, when I used to coach my girls, I don't know how many times I hollered, stop ball, stop ball, stop ball, and don't give up free drives of the basket. Well, Eduardo stepped over it and did try to stop ball. But instead of standing strong and firm and going at the ball handler, or at least holding his ground, he backed up. He was backing up, giving ground away, and gave him a free, an easy layup, an easy finish. And you can't do that, man. You got to hold your ground. You got to be physical. You got to be strong. Get a good, strong base underneath you. Didn't do that. And that's just one example. Texas Tech was the more physical team, especially in that second half. I don't know if West Virginia ran out of gas. I don't know what the deal was, but whatever it was, they just were not near as physical. It hurt them on the rebounding as well. Daniel Gigak says, will the Big 12 get 2 number 1 seeds? I think it might happen. Maybe. A lot of it may depend on this Iowa State-Houston game that's going on right now. If someone don't mind, please update me on the score. That looks like it's 53-49 Houston. Is that right? So it looks like a really close game, 6:19 to go in the second half. Some of it may depend on that. I agree, Raven. Javon does not look like he's 100% for sure. I think that ankle is still bothering him. He's not going to use it as an excuse, because that's not the type of player he is, but I do think it was giving him fits out there today. Sammy Viana or Villena, he says, tough place to play. I wouldn't let it get you down. Truly, though, I don't know what the solution is. Yeah, Sammy, I don't know either. Just shake it off, put it behind you and try to go out and win the next one. That's all you can do, really. Daniel says, if I could count how many times we had tech issues, it would fill a whole video. Yeah, you're right. Kevin Backus says, it was funny, though, that Texas Tech couldn't make anything on that end of the floor first half, then WVU couldn't make anything the second half. That's a great observation, Kevin, that I didn't even notice. But you're right. It seems like whichever team was shooting on that, I guess it was the left side of the court, could not make anything. Left side of the court as far as if you're watching on television. Yeah, Javon missed a lot of shots driving Raven. You're right. He just wasn't himself today. Even though Texas Tech did a good job defending him, he still missed shots that he normally doesn't miss. And again, I think that ankle is giving him a little bit of some fits. Mark Painter says, we are also so happy driving and no one but really Javon and Joe try. Sloppy driving. I'm sorry. Yes. So sloppy driving and nobody but Javon and Joe try. You're right, man. They get too content standing out there and shooting threes. Well, that's okay if you're making them and you're hot, but when you're not making them and you're cold, you got to try to score in other ways. I even put on Twitter one time, good things happen when you drive the ball to the basket. You're either going to get fouled in a lot of cases or you might make it in a lot of cases. And it also brings the defense in, and it gives your good shooters a chance to get out and get open threes on occasion. Daniel Gigak says, even if the Zebras were a factor, Texas Tech just played a great second half. Yep. Spot on, Daniel. Spot on. WVU Fan 13 says 6-27 from 3 in the story. Yep. Daniel says he's going to be at the BYU game next Saturday with Nate. Awesome. I'll try to – maybe the camera will get you guys and I'll be able to see you. Be cool for you and Nate to get together too, man. That'd be neat. John Kelly says, yeah, rough second half. Still has a narrow chance to make the tournament, but with how they shoot this late in the year, I just don't know if they can this season. It's going to be close, John. Again, if they can hold serve at home, that gets them to 18 wins. I still feel like they need to win at least one more road game, either at BYU or Utah, before I feel totally comfortable, but we'll see. Maybe the 2 home wins gets them in. I don't know. John Kelly says, we just struggle to make shots and score enough. WVU Fan 13 says, no points in the final 4:09 of the first half, 7 points in the first 7:19 of the second half. Just like the middle 8 of football, we only had 7 points in 5. It's a great point. That middle part of the game was definitely rough, for sure. Middle 11-28. Great point. Yep, Raven mentions that, great observation, Raven, that Andre had a wide open lane to drive from high posts a few times, and he didn't take it. You got to take what the defense gives you, especially when you're not making your threes. I was getting so frustrated watching them just stand back and fire up 3-point shots. They're not going in, guys. Stop shooting them. Stop shooting them. And I know the thought is, well, they can shoot their way out of a slump, but there are guys on this team that haven't made threes consistently all year. You don't want those guys firing up a bunch of threes. It's just not winning basketball at any level. Got Jeb's Railroad. Thank you for the comment. He says, horrible coaching once again, 24-15 with 5 minutes to go in first half. We had control. Let's set Smalls on the bench and go into the locker room down by 3 and letting TT have all the momentum. Jebs, I understand your critique there, but a couple of things that played into that. Number one, Javon had 2 fouls. They were trying to keep him out of foul trouble. Number 2, you've got to give the guy a rest at some point. He cannot play 40 minutes a night. And I think his ankle is still banged up too. So while I understand maybe he didn't sub at the right time, Jebs, and that's a fair criticism, when else you going to sub him, But I do know this. When they take him off the floor, it's not the same basketball team. But again, when you're up 20, you should be able to hold a 9-point lead with the other guys. You know what I mean? At some point, the other guys have to step up and make plays. You can't leave it all on Javon's shoulders. It's just not a winning formula. Baron O Beef Dip, thank you for the comment. Says, Coach is crashing the team, and then he is going to leave for Iowa. He most likely accepted that position after the Iowa. Guys, there is absolutely nobody that I know of reporting that Darren DeVries is going to be the coach at Iowa. This is a huge rumor that needs to die. Where did it start? Who started the rumor? It's a rumor. Let it go. Fran McCaffrey hasn't even been fired at Iowa yet, and we don't know that he will be. Please let the rumor go. Jebs says, well, I tried to post your comment, Jebs, but he sets him down every game before halftime. Happens all the time. You've got to learn not to do that. And that's fair. That's a fair criticism. But I think I don't want to try to speak for him, but my thinking is, hey, we got a 9-point lead. Get him a couple minutes, and these guys ought to be able to hold this lead, and they can't. Maybe he needs to rest him earlier. But again, I think a lot of it in this particular game, I think some of it has to go to those 2 fouls as well. But again, I don't know. I don't want to try to speak for him. The first place I saw it was Voice of Morgantown, and then I saw a USA Today site who did an article basically just saying if McCaffrey leaves, he would be the top candidate. But they didn't say McCaffrey was leaving. They just said if he would leave, because Iowa is struggling, and there is some noise that because of his age and the fact that they're struggling so bad that maybe he will leave. But I reached out to someone I know who covers Iowa, and he says there's been no talk about Fran McCaffrey leaving. So take that for what it's worth. And I apologize again for earlier, guys, when the screen share didn't work. I'm using a brand new platform here. I'm not on StreamYard anymore. I'm on something different, and I'm still trying to figure it out. There are still some things I haven't learned how to do quite yet, apparently. So I'm still working on it, but hopefully it was still a good show. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, if you're watching on X, please come over to my YouTube channel, Hoops from the Hills. This is on the Couz, my regular Couz X/Twitter account, because I'm not able to stream it on the Hoops from the Hills account, but it is on the Hoops from the Hills YouTube account. So if you're on X, please come over to Hoops from the Hills, subscribe to me over there, watch my previous shows, and hopefully hit the thumbs up on them as well if you thought I earned it. John Kelly says, should be Tucker's team next season, and the other guys should be improved. Here's what we got to look forward to. A, hopefully they can still get in the NCAA tournament, right? B, for next year, if hopefully they're able to keep most of these guys. If they're able to keep the core group together with Tucker, Amani Hansberry, Sincere Harris, Jonathan Powell, if you're able to keep that core group of guys together, and with the talent they have coming in as freshmen, if they can go out and get a couple of really good bigs in the portal that can make a difference, because Andre is going to be leaving. Get yourself a couple bigs in the portal. The future is still really bright for this team and this program. I have no doubt in that. I still love this team. I still love this staff. And I think the future's bright. Right now, just with Tucker DeVries being out, it's just really, really hurt this team. And they kind of gave us maybe some false hope early by, let's be honest, they were probably punching above their weight class a little bit early on in the season. And then once teams figured out how to guard Javon differently, there was more game on film and on tape. Teams were able to prepare better. It changed things. And then obviously, fatigue plays a factor. Guys getting banged up plays a factor. We're at that point in the season where hardly nobody's 100%, including Javon Small. And all it takes is a cold shooting night from your other players, and it's hard to win a game. I mean, it's just that simple. It's that simple. You need both Monty Hansberry and Jonathan Powell, both basically, to make shots almost every single night. And I don't know that that's a realistic expectation, especially with Powell being a true freshman. So we'll see. But I do still love this team. I do still think the future's bright. They still have a shot to get in the NCAA tournament, but they have very, 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 very little room for error. Maybe zero room for error at this point. and they've got to win. They have to. Both of these home games to me are must-win games if they have any chance to get into March Madness. You've got TCU at home, and then later they've got UCF at home. Both of those have to be wins. All right. Well, I'm going to call it a show. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully, my breakdown was good. Again, West Virginia drops to Texas Tech 51-73 on a very rough day shooting the ball for the Mountaineers. They shoot only 22% from three on the day. Didn't shoot much better overall from the floor. And it just was not. Shot 32.8% from the floor overall. Not a winning formula. Tough game for the Mountaineers. Stormy Cyclone, thank you for chiming in, brother. I know your team's playing as we speak. He's talking about rumors they're starting now that TJ Altenberger is going to be leaving for Indiana. So, yeah, people love to start rumors. It is what it is. We live in the age of social media and content creation. I did do a video on Darren DeVries rumor. So maybe I'm guilty too, but I did make a point to say it was a rumor and that I didn't want to put a lot of weight on it until something was announced. But anyway, thank you all for tuning into this show. I appreciate your support, your continued support. Again, reminder to hit the like button, please, on your way out. And reminder to subscribe to the channel here. Thanks again. Hope the rest of your day is top shelf. Stay blessed and Q Country Roads.